Dari, you join me on today, the 15th of June 2021, to see if I can follow my own instructions. So to explain, the purposes of this video tutorial is to get you started with Cromemco Cromix, the Z80 version 11.27, running under the ZEMU Emulator. And for that we need a Windows 10 system 32-bit variety. So in front of you, you see a VMware workstation session, and we have a powered off Windows 10 virtual machine. So the first thing we do is going to power that on. It's all done real time. There's no fancy editing or take backs, so mistakes are mistakes. And we're going to go through my instructions and see if they work. Now I happen to know that they do work, but let's just prove that, shall we? So we're going to start the virtual machine. It's booted. We're going to log in. Don't forget that the precursor to all of this is that you will have joined the Cromemco group, the Google group, and in order to access the private GitHub, you will have sent back an email agreeing to the terms and conditions. You'll then have access to the private GitHub, and this is the long version of the instructions. And in the long version, you can either download from the GitHub a powered off virtual machine, which is effectively the machine that you are looking at, or preferably you can do the whole thing yourself manually, which is to build a virtual machine. So I assume you're starting with a Windows 10 64-bit system. You install VMware or VMware Player, and inside that you're going to install Windows 10, the 32-bit version. You're going to power that on, and then you're going to copy into that virtual machine the RAR file, which is a customized ZEMU virtual machine. And you're going to follow the instructions in the WordPress, which basically says just run the setup program to install ZEMU. So we're at the point now where we're going to load ZEMU, and although this has run before on this virtual machine, we're going to go through all the steps. So that if this was your first time running ZEMU, we wouldn't assume that any of the presets have been saved. And in fact, you can't save all the presets you need. So if you don't suspend the virtual machine, and if you shut down the virtual machine and restart it, you're going to need to go through most of these actions each time. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to start the ZEMU emulator, which is here, and the emulator starts. Now these three windows are the windows that you wouldn't see on the first time. Now let's get rid of those windows. So we're going to start from scratch. So the first instructions are to load memory. So that's file, load memory. And we're going to load the RDOS, that's the Resident Disk Operating System, version 3.12. We load the hex file. Hex file is resident at hex address C000. So if you were to press run, you'd start to run that code. But we need to do lots of things before we press the run button. But that is our ultimate objective, to press the run button. So we've loaded the Resident Disk Operating System monitor. The next thing to do is to load I/O port and interrupts. Again, I'm going from the WordPress article. I'm following it strictly, so I'm going to be doing just the things that I've said there. So we're doing a load of I/O port remap. We're going to select Cromix. The next thing is to load interrupt assignments. Load interrupt assignments. There's only one option. We'll take that option. The next thing is to load interrupt reset values. We're going to choose the Z80. Next, we need to configure the terminals that we need to run on this humble Z80 processor. So that's devices, generic devices, and we're going to select 3 terminals that's going to appear on the screen. So there's 0, 1 and 2. Press OK. So you see we've got 3 terminals have popped up. Now those are dumb terminals, but some of the programs you might wish to run under Cromemco Cromix, which is a fully superset of Cromemco CDOS, which is able to run Z80 CPM programs. So many of those programs would address the cursor screen, and to do that the terminal has to behave like a Cromemco C3102 terminal. So that's what we're going to do 3 times. We're going to do into Terminal, Abilities, Load. We're going to load that tab file. And you'll see that then this is shown here telling us that this personality now, this window is going to obey escape sequences, that if the application sends an escape sequence, escape something something, to clear the screen will clear. We're going to repeat that 2 more times. Abilities, load, Cromemco terminal, terminal, abilities, load, Cromemco terminal. Okay, so now 3 terminals are set up to behave like Cromemco terminals. We're about 50% of the way there. Now we need to tell the emulator to load 4 diskettes. They're going to be 8-inch diskettes. A, B, and C, D are blank, so we're going to say load up A with drive A. Load disk B with drive B. Load up disk C with disk C. And load up disk D with drive D. Now actually something clever is going to happen here actually, because what I've done is I've spread the operating system across 2 disks. So you're going to boot up on drive A, but in the middle of the boot process it's going to do a sneaky mount to mount drive B. So when the boot process finishes, it's going to finish up with both A drive and B drive being used. Okay, so we've loaded the diskettes, but we need to tell the emulator the format of those diskettes. So we do that with, so scroll down, see my instructions. We need to do disks drive properties. So disks drive properties. Now actually this is set from a previous run, but I wanted to do it from scratch, so we'll go into the A. We'll just show you the A. You need to file, load the format, and then you've got to choose one of these formats I've put here. Now these formats are the same as the beginning of a hidden 8-byte string. Well, it's between 6 and 8 bytes actually, on the head of the floppy disk. And what the Cromemco system does when it boots is it reads that special place, and it reads those 6 to 8 bytes and says what are they, and then it knows what the kind of diskette it's dealing with. Now all the 4 diskettes that I've loaded are the maximally largest size, which is a Cromemco large double-sided double density single tracking diskette. So it's that's the format. We're going to say open that, and that puts into here the fact that we've got 77 cylinders, there's 2 heads, 154 tracks, etc. Okay, so we're going to say OK on there, and then you need to repeat that for properties B, C and D. I've already set them B, C and D. I'm not going to repeat the same thing, but you need to do B, C and D. You need to load that file. Okay, we are nearly there. The excitement is building. Now, we are in fact there. All we need to do now is press the run key. So are you ready? Run. And RDOS has started. That's the prompt. That's the semicolon prompt. Now the next step is optional but highly useful, which is to press the T for test. Well, that didn't happen there. Focus. T for test. Enter. So the banks of memory have been tested. 16 banks of 4K has been tested. Now it's to test the floppy disk. So we're going to say what we want to test. F for floppy. Drive A. It's a L for large disk, and it's a S for slow, meaning it's not a per SI voice call disk. No one uses per SI voice call disks. And it's done a test. It's done a seek test, and it could, if we hit enter, do a write test, but we're not going to do a write test. That would be crazy. So I'm going to press escape. So now we're at the prompt. We're still in the monitor. I want to boot from drive A, so we do a B for boot, an A for the A disk, and we hit enter. See the word standby, you know you're doing well. It's read, in fact, the operating system, and the first thing it wants you to do now is, because we've configured the operating system to be able to boot to anywhere, we want to tell it where to boot onto to finish the booting. So we want one for floppy, and we want to boot to the A drive, so that's 0. 0. We're booted. Now, need to set the date and time. We need month number 6. Today is the 15th, so I'll put 15 in there. We need 121 to tell the system that it's the year 2021. It's a bit of a workaround. And for me, the time right now is 21.14. And we have fully booted. Hash prompt, I'm booted up. Now these are the other terminals. Let's do a PS-AL. You'll see there's a Getty running here on terminals 2 and 3, counting from 1. So if we hit enter here, what's going to happen? For login as system, the password for system has been removed to make it easy for everybody. You are in root or super user. Let's try here as well. Log on the system. So we've now got 3 super users logged on, each one having their own Cromemco terminal running on a Z80 processor within a 32-bit Windows 10 machine, which is actually a virtual machine under my Windows workstation. So that's the end of the demonstration. At this point, you could suspend the virtual machine, which would mean to say that anytime you wanted to restart it, you just have to unsuspend it. So I could suspend the virtual machine. Let's just do that to show you. Suspend the virtual machine. Suspended. You can then switch your computer off. You can come back the next day, the next week, and you can open up VMware, and then just press resume. And since this is a file system, back. It's back. And then you're just picking up exactly where you left off. Okay, that concludes the practical demonstration. I'm glad to say the instructions worked, and now it's your turn. So I hope this works for you, and thanks for watching.